All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sarah Centrella show. I have one of my favorite people, legitimately favorite people ever on the show today. Amanda Cahill and I have known each other for probably 6 years at this point. I don't even know. I lost track. But I'm just so excited for our conversation today. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Oh my gosh, like I'm always so excited. Obviously, anytime that you and I get to chat, but today just feels super special and I'm so thankful to be here. I adore you. You've been such a
Same,
huge
girl.
blessing in my life for the past, I think you're right, like six
Yeah,
or
I
seven
feel like
years.
it's
I think
probably
it
been
was,
about 6 years, something like
yeah. And
that. I
so
don't know.
just couldn't be more excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the reason why you're here because way back when we started working together about 6 years ago, probably like 2018 maybe ish, sounds about right. And one of the goals when we were flushing out your dream future life was to be an author and to write a book about your journey, about the growth that you've had. And here we are on freaking launch day of your book. Congratulations. Tell us about
Oh,
it.
oh my God, thank you so much. And it's crazy because I don't ever remember. We've had those conversations such a long time ago. And this is what I love. One of the things I love the most about you is you remember all these little things that we've
That's
talked about.
right.
And you're always like, remember when we talked about this and you
Yep.
said you wanted this? And I'm like, did I? And now
Yep.
here we are. And it's just crazy. And I even think back, one of the very first future boards I ever made, I have a photo of me hand signing a book and like
Yep.
shaking hand of somebody and like it's here and
Yeah.
I literally cannot believe it. It is so exciting. In Redefining You, the name of my book, it
Yeah.
just feels like a culmination of everything that I've learned over the
Yep.
past couple of years, you and I working together. But honestly, it's just one of those things where I know firsthand what it's like to chase success and to
Yeah.
work tirelessly towards goals, but still feel like there's something missing a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I want to get into all of it and definitely some specifics in the book because you give some great lessons and how to's talking about your own journey as well. And I love a good homework. I love a good application. How do I apply kind of what I'm learning? But you touched on something a second ago that I think is definitely worth pointing out. I think when we are at the beginning stage. So lots of listeners are out there who maybe haven't sat down and defined their goals, sat down and really thought about what they want in their future. It is so powerful and so important because there's going to be so many things you're going to write down and you are totally going to forget all about it, like what you just said. But like it did wind up on your future board. It wound up in future boards in years, in the subsequent years as well. But the most important thing about doing that and writing that down is that it goes into that subconscious place, right? Like just in the back of your head, you're like, I know I want to share what I'm learning. And then over those years in between, you have learned so much. And I think when you put that goal out there and it is subconscious, then your mind is collecting like, oh, this is how I did that. That's a good tip. I want to share that later. You know what I mean? So by the time you sat down to write the book, like all of that is present, right? In the journey that you have made to have success. And part of what you were wanting back then too was to grow your career. And so you talk about that, like what is the journey to success? So let's start there. I think that's as good a place to start as any. Everybody defines success different. So how did you redefine success?
Well, it's interesting. I think I'm still redefining it. For context, I was somebody who soared up the corporate ladder very quickly. I got to the C-suite in right about 10 years, which is very fast.
Yeah.
And also growing a business at the same time, but over the course of that, I became a mom. And what I defined success at before I became a mom is completely different than my vision and my version of success now. And honestly, I feel like as I'm transitioning through this motherhood journey, still elevating my career, still thriving in my industry and being a C-suite executive, I'm still constantly trying on new things and figuring out what fits. So it's like it's such a loaded question for you to ask that because honestly don't even have a definitive answer. What I know is the woman that I want to be. I know how I want to show up. I have a vision for who I am as a person and
Mm,
how I show up in my career and with my family and how present I am with my son. All of those things to me really equate to success and finding fulfillment and being happy as were before I was in this
yeah.
state. It was hustle, hustle, hustle,
Right.
get to the next achievement, the next advancement, the next promotion, the next client. It was always chasing something, some external validation. And I think something that I've learned through our time working together and then also just over my journey is it's okay for that to change. It's okay
Yep.
for you to shift and to pivot through different seasons of your life. And it's okay to sit down and say, what is it that I really want?
Yeah.
Because that is the key that so many women specifically, we're always chasing these things that people tell us we should want. Society tells us, our family, our parents, maybe things we learned in childhood. And it's like, okay, but what do you actually want? And that's
Right.
something that I really started to ask myself as I was redefining who I was in this stage of my life.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. I think part of that comes with the wisdom of maturity and age, like hate to say the age word, but I think like as we grow and being a mom, like you said, changed that a lot for you. It just changes perspective. It changes what's important. It changes the value. In your 20s, you were probably like getting into the C-suite and getting the salary I have is success. Like end of story, period. That's what it looks like, right? But then you get there and you have to almost redefine it. Otherwise, we get to this place where we're like totally stale and nothing is fulfilling, and achieving all the things we wanted to achieve got us didn't make us feel different, right? Didn't change anything. For all the women out there listening now, do you have some tips on how you kind of redefined success, or gave yourself permission to redefine it, gave yourself permission to maybe let go of the the very hardcore specifics you had? I have to do this, I have to do that. Are there any tips that you have for women to just kind of give themselves permission to redefine themselves?
Well, I mean, I'm like, where do I even start? Because there's so many things, right? Because I mean, there's so, like, I talk to so many ambitious women who on the outside, just like me,
Yeah.
we achieve so much, but yet on the inside, we're feeling stuck and uncertain and disconnected from who we are and the life we're building. And so many of us are living this version of success that was never really ours to begin with. As I mentioned, it's things we learned from our peers or from our parents or from society, right? But I think some of the things that I really had to let go of is fitting what I thought was checking all of the boxes, the white
Yeah.
picket fence, the 2.5 kids, whatever,
Yeah.
2.5 kids, this version of success. And it's like, at my core, what is going to make me fulfilled? What is going to make me happy? And I used to be the person who traveled all the time. I was gone, being gone 5, 6, 7 days.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even blink. I'm like, yes, send me. Where do I go?
Right.
It's so much fun. I thrived in that. And now in this season, I'm giving myself permission to say, okay, but what feels in alignment with me? And for me, I want to be present. I want to be home more. So I still travel because I love that piece and it fills
Yeah.
me up. And people think I'm weird when I say this, but like I love being in airports. I love like just being around
Me
the energy
too.
of people traveling
Me
and
too.
going places. And not that staying in hotels is fun, but I
Yeah.
like that environment versus just sitting at a computer
Right.
all day, every day. But I put parameters on what that looked like. Now I have a rule where I'm gone 2 nights max. I really try to only be gone one night. And so it's like just finding little things like that where it's like, what are my non-negotiables? What is going to make me not burn out for
Yeah.
starters? Because I think so many people in my age group, like the late millennials, we're in that hustle, always have to
Right.
achieve, always have to get to the next thing, and we never stop to slow down.
Yep. Yeah.
And that was part of my non-negotiables is like what can I live with and what can I not live with, and being strict and no, this is my rule, this is how I feel about this, right?
Yeah.
And it's just finding little pieces like that that you can pick apart in your life that will be more aligned with where you're going and what you're actually defining as success,
Yeah.
because life is too short. Life is too
Amen.
short to be anything but happy.
Life is way too short. And it sounds like putting some boundaries in place with work and and protecting home with your boundaries, I guess, as well. But talk about that a little bit, because I know a lot of people really struggle with, how do I put boundaries around work? Like I have a boss who's making me be on a plane 5 days a week. Like it is what it is. I guess I'm just supposed to do this. Like, were there any things that you did or that you suggest that helped you communicate some boundaries, where it's like, hey, I can't, I can travel for 2 days at a time, but three is like too much. You have a young child, right? And so that is even harder to be away for multiple days. So what helped you kind of put some boundaries in place for work to be able to like self-advocate a little bit?
Well, I think first it's going back to what I mentioned earlier. It's like figuring out what it is that you are your non-negotiables, right?
Yeah.
And you have to understand too, like we live in an age where there's ample opportunity. I think it used to be, 20, 25 years ago, if you were in a job, you felt like you were stuck there. You were like, this is the only job. But now with the internet, you have access to so many people, so many different industries, so many avenues that you can take your life. So if you're constructing what you want your career to look like, your home life, all of these things, and they don't fit into your current situation, this is your permission to start exploring how do you bridge that gap and start taking little steps and little actions to move you to this life that is more aligned with you, that has those boundaries and the parameters. And for me, what that looked like, I didn't have it in the position that I was in when I first became a mom. And so I had to create a new role for myself somewhere else.
Yeah.
And yes, I was scared. Obviously, I was a new mom. I was suffering from postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, and there was a lot on my plate. Anybody who's been in that season just knows it is one of the hardest things, or can be one of the
Yeah.
hardest things that you can ever go through. But that doesn't mean that you have to stay stuck. I think a lot of times we have to take ownership and realize that we are the main character and the director in the
Yep.
starring movie of our life. And with that, that means that you can rewrite the script at any point in time.
Yep.
You can change the lead character, adding characteristics or certain things that they do. But that means that if you're in this situation, it doesn't have to be permanent. You can
Right.
find ways and start having conversations and network to meet other people because there's always another opportunity. You first just have to get that thought in your mind,
Mhm.
know what it is that you want, like you talk about all the time,
Yep.
right? How do you know, if you don't know what you want, how will you know if you've got it? And it's like, well, first let me figure out what it is that I actually want and then start taking steps to move through it. So I just removed myself from the situation that was hindering me and preventing me from keeping those non-negotiables in my life and found a different position that was
Yeah.
allowing me to be able to
Yeah.
do that.
I love that. And I think, like you said, knowing what you want, because you put that kind of wish or desire into the universe in some of the work that we've done together, the life plan story, future boards and things like that, on like, okay, I thought I wanted this kind of rat race. And that was the position that you were in at the time, great position, but it was really busy. It was more of a kind of like that rat race vibe. And then you come to this place where you're like, this isn't an alignment anymore. I want more of like a lifestyle. I want my lifestyle, which includes home, which includes me taking care of myself, which includes me doing things that I'm passionate about, and work as part of that. But work isn't 90% of it anymore. Like
Mhm.
I'm shifting, right? And so you can, for everyone out there who's listening, you can put that wish and desire out right now. Like maybe that is terrifying to think, oh my God, I have a solid job right now. I can't think of having another job. It's okay. Just put the wish and the desire out right now for the life and the lifestyle that you want. And then the universe will bring opportunities to you. And that's really what happened to you. This opportunity came to you, like, but you had put the openness before, probably, 6 months or even maybe a year before, of like, hey, I want to change. I'm ready for a change. And so when the opportunity knocked, you're like, okay, this is much more in alignment. I'm going to have a lot more autonomy. I'm going to have more flexibility, etc. And then I think that last piece of like communicating early on with, say, a new boss, when you do get a new position, and I'm not sure, maybe you can talk a little bit if you did or didn't do that, but I would think that that's an important piece of it too. Like once I get the new job, like, okay, initially in those very first conversations, hey, I don't mind traveling. I love traveling, but I kind of have a 2-day limit, So right off the bat, like put those boundaries in place.
I did. I had to have those conversations because I knew exactly what I was looking for. And when this opportunity presented itself, I mean, the leadership that I work for now, the owner of my company has 8 kids, 8 kids.
Wow.
So when you talk about, I put it out into the world that I wanted to be in an environment that recognizes family and family life and the importance that family places in your
Yeah.
fulfillment. Well, and for me specifically, that's what I wanted.
Right.
and to move into a leadership role underneath somebody who understands that dynamic and gets it. And now when we're planning travel, he's like, "Oh, maybe you could come in a little bit later because I know you want to be home with Cam. You can meet us there at this time. You don't have to come in when everybody else does, or if you need
Love
to leave
that.
early, like we get that." And a lot of that was me getting clear on
Yep.
exactly what I wanted and then communicating through
Amen.
the interview process and me onboarding, saying, "These are my expectations. Is that in alignment with how you see this role
Yep.
playing out, how you see me filling this role within our organization, and let's have a conversation about it." So many times we think things are black and white. It's like
Yep.
we're so scared to speak up, and it's like, why are we so afraid to speak
Yeah.
up? Because this is your life, right? And if
Absolutely.
you are not willing to advocate for yourself, who is?
Not only that, the consequences of not speaking up are way bigger on both sides of the coin, right? Because if I am withholding what I really want, not speaking up, not speaking my truth, and I'm just going along and doing it, what's going to happen? I'm going to get burned out. I'm going to get resentful. I'm going to start to hate my job. On the other side, your boss is not going to get the best version of you literally ever because you're holding all that stuff, the resentment, the whatever. And every time you are showing up for things, maybe you're in a mood or whatever the case is, right? So there isn't an upside to not speaking your truth. There really isn't for either party, right? So I think just the more that you get to a place in your life where you know yourself and you know not only kind of what you want, but what works for you and what doesn't, then the next piece of that is learning how to effectively communicate that to others. And others is regardless, bosses, spouses, kids, like everyone in your life. How do you communicate your needs in a way that is being received, that is open, and that people are like, okay, yeah, I want to honor that. I want to, give you space to do that. So when it comes to being a working mom, talk a little bit about how you've redefined motherhood for you and how having a career, what has that been like doing both, and both are really important to you.
You know what's funny is when I think back, I was so terrified of becoming a mother. I was so not of the actual becoming a mom piece. I was afraid of how it would affect me as a person and a
Mm,
professional and somebody who thrived on career advancement and being a leader and showing up a certain way. I was so terrified of what it would look like for me. I was honestly scared that I was never going to want to work again. The
yeah,
unknown was so paralyzing to me. And it's
right.
one of the reasons why I waited so long to even start my family. I mean, that and the fact that I thought I was going to be seen differently. I didn't want to
Yeah,
be treated differently than my peers. I didn't want to be passed up for promotions. And what's so strange to me is now that I'm on this side, I am still super ambitious, but my ambition looks so different.
yeah,
It's hard to even put it into words. Like the catalyst of motherhood and what it did to me and how it changed me, my core being, it kind of feels like I've come home to myself. All
mm,
those years, maybe I was putting on a facade or maybe I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, but now I feel, and maybe it's part age too. I think all
yeah,
of it's kind of tying in
yeah,
together, where I really feel permission to be who I really am and to step into that calling a little bit,
yeah,
right? To change the trajectory of somebody's life. Like it's so beautiful to me to be able to shape how somebody else experiences the world and to see my
mm,
son so happy and thriving and just like the kindest little soul.
yeah,
It brings me so much joy. And what that has done for me has pushed me to redefine how my ambition shows up. It put me in a situation where I wanted to start a podcast, where I wanted to write this book, where I wanted to show other women that you don't have to do it this way that everybody's always
right,
told
yeah,
you. You're comparing, you're seeing this person over here, and you think that she did all these things. When I started having conversations with women who are CEOs now about what their journey looked like when they were in the same exact stage as me, my mind was completely
yeah,
blown to see how much permission they gave themselves to, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to do it the same as Susie down the street or your neighbor or the woman in the PTA mom who is,
yeah, yeah,
Susie homemaker. Like
right.
you get to do it the way you want to do it. And once you release that pressure from yourself of thinking that you have to keep up with the Joneses, that you have
Yeah,
to do it just like everybody else, God, it is so freeing. To
It is
just
the
show
best
up
thing
as
ever.
you.
Yeah, and it makes you so much better at everything you do, actually. That's a crazy, crazy thing about it. Once you let go of all that, then you actually are showing up authentically at work, which makes you better at work, right? And I think you're talking about how kind of motivation and ambition changes once you're a parent. I think for me it definitely did too, because it's like it's not just me anymore. Like I want to do good in this world because that is an example for my children. I want to, show up the best that I can so that, any room that I'm in is going to benefit. So I'm not wasting time, right? That became a lot more important to me. I wanted to make sure that anything that I'm involved in, I'm actually giving it my best because if it's going to take me away from my kids, I want to make sure that I'm fucking killing it. Otherwise, I'd rather be with my kids. Like, So I think it just kind of changes that. You have different motivation, and that can be a really good thing. It can be actually a super powerful motivator.
Well, and it's so interesting, even just reflecting on what you just said. I think about the times where I am away and I do travel and I'm gone for a day or two. When I come home, my cup is so full
Yeah.
and I'm such a more present, happy mom. And
Right.
it's just so crazy how I've found this beautiful way to be able to blend the two together where
Yeah.
maybe I'm not giving 100%, I'm not spreading myself too thin. I'm not taking away from anything, but when I'm at work, I'm present. And then
Yeah.
when I'm at home, I'm
And
present.
presence.
And
Yes.
being where you are 100% fully, that's the key.
Yeah, I think that right there is everything. That was something that I kind of had to learn really early on because I was raising my kids by myself. And I knew that I only got a couple, especially when I was in corporate, I only got a couple hours a day with them. I got from like 5:30 to 8 when they were in bed. And so that was so important for me to be present, to turn off everything else, to give myself that box to live in that was like a sacred little box just for them. And thank God I did because it allowed me to redefine what motherhood looked like for me back then, right? Because like before that, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was the type that was like, I'm going to make organic baby food for my kids, and they're never going to eat, and like once I'm working and I'm a single mom, I'm like, here you go, TV dinner, let's heat that shit up, like like it just changes, but I was okay with that because I knew I was being present in the important ways or in the important things, and I was okay to let go and be like, hey, if it's a TV dinner, it's a fucking TV dinner. Like eventually, I'll teach you how to cook, and I did. But like you got to give yourself grace in these different seasons of your life and really strip it down to like what matters. How can I be present in those moments that matter? Because that's what, like you said, fills your cup back up and gives you the energy to do all the things that we have to do. I love
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's crazy. One of the things that I talk about in my book is taking social media breaks,
yeah,
especially when you're in that season like you just talked about where you're feeling guilty or it's
yeah,
like, you know what, I need to do this. I have to like I do that
yeah,
now. Like I'm
yeah,
like last night I had to do it. I told my husband, I said, we're turning on the TV. I just need some time.
yeah,
And we let him sit there for 30 or 40 minutes and like I know people are like, "Oh my God, you
yeah,
let him
yeah,
do what?" And it's like, "But I needed it." But the
yep,
social media thing, I feel like a lot of times we start feeling some kind of way because we're too busy comparing and we're seeing these people who
mm,
are showing us their highlight reel and that everything is picture perfect. And it's like one of my favorite memes that I've seen is a photo of an apple standing in front of a mirror, and the image in the front of the apple is beauty. But what we actually see is there's a big bite bitten out of the
yeah, yeah,
apple. And it's like that to me is what social media is. And it's like
yeah,
when you remove that, a detox, whether it's a day, a
yeah,
weekend, I know people have done it for months where you
yeah.
just get out of that space because
Amen.
it's so refreshing to
Amen.
you and
Yep.
your creativity and your happiness. I'm like, I tell everybody that when you're starting to feel guilt about something, whether that's at home or at work, or you're comparing yourself to these people, it's like, step
Yeah.
away,
Oh,
give
amen.
yourself the gift of pause and just,
Amen. I mean, if I could go back to the flip phone, honest to God, I would. Because it does. It crushes your soul if you allow yourself to be on all the time and scrolling and doing the comparison and seeing other people who are doing better than whatever, and like you said, half of it is smoke and mirrors anyway. And I think like if we can instead spend that time being present with the person we're with, being, with our kids or getting off the phone, like it's crazy how much more you're grounded you feel, how much just your mental health improves, how much you like, oh my God, I laugh, that's something I do now. Like I love it. What are some other tips that were just game changers for you that you share in the book?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was several mindset things, a
Yeah,
lot of which
that's what
I
I was going to
learned
ask. I know mindset is a
learned
big
from
one.
you, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and so many other different like facets, but I think one of the biggest mindset shifts for me was realizing that my worth was not tied to my achievements. And I
Mm,
want any ambitious woman who's listening right now who is thinking, I have to achieve, I have to hustle, I have to check all these boxes. And maybe you're starting to feel unworthy because you're like, I'm not as far along as I thought I would be at this
yeah.
stage in my life. Like, stop all of that. Give yourself the gift
Yeah.
of just knowing that your worth is not tied to your
Yeah.
achievements.
Yeah, I love that. The other thing I think we forget to do a lot is reflect, is go back. And that's why, because I've been working with you for such a long time, I make you write everything down, right? So if you went back to that very first journal 6 years ago, you'd be like, holy shit, I forgot half the stuff I wrote down, but also all of it has happened. Like it's crazy how important that is, like to take the time to write down because whenever you're feeling the way you just described, where you're just like, man, I'm not where I want to be. I haven't achieved all the things I want to do. I have that hustle culture in me. And I do. I mean, my first book is called Hustle, Believe, Receive, right? It is definitely in me. But I can be caught in that trap too of like, I am so clear of what I want in the future that I feel like I'm not even 10% on a 10% out of 100%. I'm like, I'm nowhere. And on those are the days I'll go back to my old journals and I'll read what I used to wish for more than anything. And I'll be like, oh shit, I've been living that for like a year and a half and taking total, like, haven't even been grateful for it. So like it is crazy if you just take that moment and be like, look how far I've come. And if we're talking ambitious women, ladies, you've accomplished a shit ton. Maybe take
Yes.
a day and just give yourself a little clap on the back for that. Like,
Well, and what you just said, there are two exercises that I walk women through in this book. And like the first foundation section of the book is confidence.
mm,
And one of the things that I have people work through is a confidence resume. And it's literally what you just said. It's writing down all of the things that you have accomplished in your life. And they don't have to be
love
huge
that.
milestones, they can be
Yeah.
little things too. But it's like reflecting on what have you, because you have done some great things in your life when we just stop to
Yeah.
think about it, but we're so quick to move on to the next thing that we
Yeah.
forget that we did this thing 5 years ago, and it ends up just being this running list that you
Right.
can reflect back on. Like if you right before you go into a big meeting, if you're feeling like your confidence has waned a little bit,
Read
you
it.
pull this up and you're like,
Yeah.
I did that?
You're like,
I could
okay, I'm
definitely do this.
a badass. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And another powerful tool is taking inventory of who you are right now. Because so many times we're thinking we want to be this, we want to be that, but stopping and reflecting on who is the woman you are today. What characteristics does she
Yeah.
embody? How does she show up? So that way you can start to build into this new version of, okay, I'm
Yeah.
showing up like this today, but I would rather be a woman who does this or does that or
Yeah.
shows up this particular way, and you can start bridging the gap.
Yep.
And those are some of my favorite type of reflection exercise that I work women
Yeah.
through with this transformation through the book because like it's such powerful work and it doesn't happen overnight. It's one of those things where
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to have to sit with a question for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes a month before you really get the answer that you're after, but you are worth it to invest that time in yourself. And I've learned that from you, and I'm so grateful.
Amen. I mean, I think like doing the work and giving yourself credit for the work is another one of those pieces, right? A lot of times if we're taking a moment and we're looking back over our accomplishments, sometimes those are easy to pull out and be like, okay, I did that. I wanted to do that. I did that. Awesome. But also give yourself credit for the growth you're making. Like that's a big deal. If you have been intentional about, I want to become this type of woman, I want to become this type of mother, I want to become this type of leader, this type of mentor, this type of friend or whatever, and you can see that those characteristics are now showing up and you are actually doing those things and you are showing up in that way, like that to me is the one that you should be like ringing the bell at the top of the mountain, man, like because that's what no one else is doing. You know what I mean? Like really, and that's one of the things I've just loved about working with you is like you transform, man. Like we talk about something and you're like done. Like it's so amazing to see that transition in you over these last years because once you've identified what you want and we put those steps in place, like you become her. You're not like, I wish I was still her. I'm trying, to like struggle to show up as her. Like you put the work in and you become her. And then you're like, okay, what is the next version? And then you become her, and I'm a big, big believer in that. I always, till the end of my life, I don't care if I'm 100 and whatever, I want to always be becoming her, always, because I want to guide that. I don't want to just sit here and like coast through life.
Which is what so many people are doing.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
many, so many people just coast. They do what they're
Yeah,
told. Whenever somebody taps them on the shoulder, that's the opportunity they take. And I'm speaking to
yeah,
myself because I was that woman.
yeah,
I was the
yeah.
woman who people were like, I think you'd be really good at this. You should do it. And I would
Oh,
just do
okay.
it
Yeah,
because they told me I'd be good at it. But
yeah.
now, like I'm in my, I told you this the other day, like I'm in my year of no.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the book, like the year of yes. I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm in my year of no. If
yep,
somebody brings an opportunity to me and it is not aligned with where I'm going, who I want to be, how I
yeah,
want to show up in my life, it's a
yeah,
no.
yeah.
And that's
You're like,
okay. And the
that's a pass.
relief that I feel from that, it's the most
Yeah.
empowering thing I've ever done for myself.
I love it. And also, I think what can happen is when people know you as a certain person or in a certain way, those can be all the opportunities that come to you and you're like, man, I'm trying to move past that. Like I nailed that a while ago and now I'm good. I'm moving through it. But I think a lot of times if people don't know how to say no or don't know how to be like, this isn't aligned with what I want now. This was me 5 years ago, or this was, a version of myself I'm actually trying to grow away from, or, like evolve past. I think it's really important to be able to say no to those ones that just are not aligned, or they were part of a version of you that now you're ready to move past. And you talked in the very beginning about just giving yourself permission to pivot and to redefine. And I just want to come back to that because I think it's we talk a lot about it, but it's one of those things where not a lot of people put it into practice, right? And they're still just really hung up on the I shoulds, or I was really committed to this idea and I was really excited and fired up about this idea. This idea felt super in alignment. I don't feel it anymore, but because I was so locked in, loaded, or because I went public with it, or because I told everyone I was going to do it, I guess I just have to do it till the end of time. And you've seen me pivot a million times. You've seen me have an idea, run with it, be super fired up, and then like it just doesn't take, or it doesn't turn into what I thought it was. So like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because that is really hard for a lot of people. It's really tough.
It is hard. And I think a lot of times we're so worried about what other people are going to think. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what keeps us stuck is we're worried, oh, I made this announcement. I did this thing. Now I have to do it because people are paying attention.
Forever.
Newsflash,
Yeah.
nobody's paying attention. People have their own lives
No
they're
one
worried
gives
about.
a
I mean,
shit,
prime
honestly.
example, for
Yeah.
me, I had launched a podcast
Yeah.
Redefining Motherhood,
Right.
which I pivoted to Redefining You because my journey had changed, the
Yeah.
conversations had changed. I literally launched one episode as Redefining You after almost 100 of Redefining Motherhood,
Right.
and I didn't want to continue the podcast anymore because it wasn't in alignment with, it was taking away from me showing up for my family in the way I wanted to, and so I paused it. But I
Yeah.
was so terrified to do it because I was like, what are people going to think?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let me tell you, nobody noticed.
I that's the thing. That's the thing that people just don't get. Like people don't care. And also people would rather you this is the part that I think a lot of people out there don't get. People would rather have whatever it is be in authentic alignment with you because that is what makes us want to be on social media, right? That is what got us all on social media 15 years ago, is because people were showing up as their normal self. No one does that anymore, really. Everything is all like overdone and polished and whatever. But if you think about it, that's what we all wanted. We all wanted people to be authentic, to be real, to be honest about where they're at. And I think for me, why social media has like killed my soul over the last 5 years is because it stopped being that way. We really got so hung up on like everyone is going to be whatever. They're going to judge me if I pivot. They're going to judge me if I, now have something new I'm interested in, and or if I'm posting about something that isn't just my niche, or this, that, or the other thing. And I just want to say, like, I've been in the season of life of how do I turn off the give a fucks? Like I'm working on, and like the other day I was like, yes, it is disengaged. Oh my God, I'm so excited because I just want to be fucking me. Like I am so tired of being whatever social media is trying to force us into, like this little pocket that is such a small version of ourselves. And so I just want to commend you for doing that as well, and just saying like it is okay for me to have loved this thing and crushed this thing and given it everything I have, and now I'm good. Like there's other things that are exciting me. There's other things that are drawing my inspiration and my attention. And when did we ever, like, how did we ever think that was wrong? Like, what the fuck?
Well, what's crazy, I mean, and that relates to so many different things in life too. Like I talk to so many women who are in a specific company or in a specific role and they've been doing it for 15 years and they're
Yeah.
so terrified to leave it because they're like they want something else and they're feeling so called to do something else, but they're so afraid because this is the path that they've been on and they feel obligated to continue that. And it's like,
Yeah.
who told you that? That's one of the biggest things that I tell people is like when somebody's like, I should be doing this, I'm like, who told you you
Right.
should?
Why should you be doing that?
Who
Why?
told
Yeah.
you you should?
Right.
Often it's a story that we're making up in our mind because we
Yeah.
think that we need to be doing this. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a falsity. It's
Yep.
not actually true. It might be, but ask the question first.
Yep.
Who is telling me that I
Follow
should
your
do?
gut. Follow follow your gut and your intuition. I think as soon as we stop doing that, that's when we get off that alignment path, right? And when we're out of alignment, just nothing seems to work
Yes.
well, right? Like we're just in this struggle zone versus this flow. Everything feels really good. We've everyone out there has been in both, right? We've all been in like the struggle lane, and we've been in like this great flow lane. And it's like I think a lot of it is if we're paying attention to our intuition and our gut, we stay in alignment. As soon as we don't and do what we should do, you know?
That's such a big thing, and I've been hearing this come up more and more. What you just mentioned, it's kind of like a new, not a new age thing,
Yeah.
but we're starting to hear more about like the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we've been so cultured over the past 20, 25
Yeah.
years of the hustle, 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 achieve, do all these things that we have well, I thought
Yeah.
this way, that I couldn't think like a woman. I thought that I had to
Yeah.
think, act, show up, be like a man in order to be successful. But what you
Right.
just mentioned about intuition and trusting your
Yep.
gut, that is what makes us as women powerful. And
Amazing.
there is this new era rising where
Yeah.
women are starting to tap back into that because they realize there's more than one way to be
That can be your
successful.
superpower.
Yes, there's more than
Yeah.
one way to define it. And you are unique just as you are and being able to show up in tune with yourself and all your feminine energy. And I
Yeah.
used to cringe when people would say that. I'm like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
But it's so real and it's so true. And just being able to listen to yourself and honor
Yeah.
what is coming up for you because it's coming up for a reason. If you're feeling
Yeah.
some kind of way, there is a reason why.
Absolutely. And I'm on a similar journey, and I was the same. I didn't know anything about it. And I've always described myself as, type A. I'm a definitely type A person. I think in order to succeed in corporate, at least in my era, you had to be like there was all men in every boardroom I was ever in. If there was a woman, there might be one other woman in the room. So, you had to literally show up, like you said, almost like a man with that man energy and try to cover up all the things that made you an amazing woman. And I think you're right. I think we're in this stage where both in relationships and dating and in our work, we're like, you know what? I want to show up as me. Like, but also it's okay to have that softer side. It doesn't make me any less successful. It doesn't make me any less ambitious. It doesn't make me any less smart to embrace kind of that feminine energy. And for me, the feminine energy is really an energy of being, of just being. Like I don't always have to force. And I was a hustler, so I was a forcer, right? I'm gonna tear down every wall in front of me. I'm gonna jump over every obstacle. Like, let's go. And what I've realized is sometimes that's great because you need that, but also sometimes it's okay to just be and breathe through it and let it come to you, and allow there to be a space where it's like it's okay. It can come to me. I don't have to be a bulldozer in every situation to be successful. It's you're right. It's a new era. One last tip. What is your favorite tip in the book?
Oh my gosh, how do you ask me to pick just one? Are you
I know they're like
kidding?
children, right?
Okay. I mean, I think my favorite thing that I talk about in the book and that I've gotten the most feedback on so far is this GPS analogy. And
Mm,
it's putting in a destination for your life. And this goes
yeah,
back to literally what we've talked about this entire conversation, getting clear on where you want to go, who you want to be, how you want to show up, getting that destination in your mind. Because
yep,
when you do, that's you putting your destination into your GPS. Just
yep,
think about it. If you open up the GPS on your phone, you don't put in any destination, it just blinks,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it moves around aimlessly if you start driving or you start moving. But once you put a destination in, what does it
yep,
do?
yep,
15 different routes pop up. The scenic route, you could go the direct route. There's all these different ways. And once you start taking intentional steps towards creating that life or being that woman that you want to be, the road starts
yeah,
being revealed to you, the path starts being revealed to you. And if you take a wrong turn, what happens? It recalculates.
yep,
It's a new
exactly.
opportunity, it's a new
Yeah,
resource, something pops up. But like just being able to think about your life in that concept to
yep,
me is probably one of the most powerful things because it
love
all
that.
starts with where do you want to go?
Yes.
And that also does not mean that you have to stay that course. The vision can
Amen. It can
change,
recalculate, baby.
it can pivot where you want to go. That can
Yeah.
change, right? But the point is to put something in and start moving towards it.
Yeah, I love that so much. And you know me, I love a good analogy. So remember, if you take the exit and you weren't supposed to, what happens? Just re-hit destination and you can get right back on the freeway.
Yep.
You know, so it is so critical to know what you want, know where you're going, and be in touch with that often. Because if
Yeah.
you only define that once and 2 years has gone by, trust me, that ain't you anymore. Like you need to sit, have that conversation with yourself again, recalibrate, be like, where am I today? Where do I want to go from today's standpoint on? And that I think is what a lot of people forget to do. They kind of, do it every 5 years or something. And I always say, do it every couple months. Like sit down, know yourself. The more you know yourself, the faster you're going to get where you want to go, and the more fulfilled you're going to be in the journey,
Yeah,
which is what.
100%. Yeah, and I give some great strategies in the book for recalibrating that, knowing when you need to start thinking through it, when you need to sit down, what things to look for, and then strategies to be able to work through that at whatever frequency makes the most sense for you. And I
Love it.
agree 100% that it's not something you do every 5 years. You need to
Yeah.
have more frequency in it because you evolve so quickly, especially when you start taking action. You'd be so surprised how much momentum builds, excitement, just all the things, right?
I love it. So huge congratulations today on launch day. Yay. I'm going to put all the links, of course, here in the show notes. Everybody, do us a huge, huge favor. Please go buy the book on Amazon and leave a review. Reviews are the way that authors get their books seen. It's how it gets on, excuse me, how it gets on lists. It is just everything and then some. So go buy the book, leave a review. If you've bought my books in the past and haven't left a review, please go do that as well. That'd be awesome. But thank you so much, Amanda, for coming on and just spilling all your wisdom. We love
Oh
you.
my gosh. The pleasure is mine, truly, is I adore you so much and I just any time that we get together is truly magical and just thank you so much for letting me be here and sharing in this excitement because I am just
Love it.
overly excited for this.
I love it. All right, everybody. Until next time, hustle and thrive.